is in court to claim £850 for a painting commission he lost out on after his friend used the image without his permission. Defendant Candy says David gave her permission to use the image, so therefore she owes nothing.
If Candy she'd taken a particularly good photograph, by the way, are there photographs of David as Dusty on his Facebook page?
Yes.
What would have happened if she'd taken one of those photographs, and who knows, it could have been entirely iconic and she'd made millions from it? You'd be entitled to the money.
She would have been entitled to the money.
You're absolutely right. And you'd have been happy with that.
I would have been happy with
That's
that.
quite generous.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Sorry. You're rather generous.
Totally.
To say the very least. Now, that was a big mistake. Now, you made a T-shirt with this painting on it. Can I see a photograph of it?
Of course.
And I think as well, would you mind taking the T-shirt? I think we've got that here as well. Both, please.
Yeah,
Try not.
sure.
You don't have to put it on. Thank you. Actually, would you mind holding it up, Michelle? So I can see. Now, it looks a bit different there. It's rather darker. Wouldn't you agree with me, David?
Very much.
But it is unmistakably the same image. How did you first find out that this had happened?
I first found out when the guy who commissioned it cancelled the commission.
Well, it's not funny.
No, it wasn't.
And you're
funny.
here today,
It
just to be clear, suing Candy for £850, which was the price of the commission. What did the person who cancelled the commission say to you?
I don't want my painting on T-shirts all over London.
Although there's no contract between you and him.
No.
Neither have I got anything except your word from him to say that that's the reason he decided not to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
And what's more, the painting, as you rightly described, isn't finished in any event. So the reality is, as of today, you couldn't ask him for that money anyway, even if you wanted to. Correct?
Correct.
So how am I supposed to give you your £850 at this stage?
Because it would have been finished and he would have had it had he been... had Candy not done what she did, basically. He would have been very... because he liked it. He wanted me to finish it. But...
Well, I know it's not necessarily apposite in the course of these proceedings, but, you know, if my mother had different equipment, she'd be my father. You understand? If. But you've got a big problem here, because there's no paper between you and anybody.
No, I know.
Well, you say no in that slightly artistic way. But here's the reality. This is good quality work against the backdrop of being a notorious and successful performance artist. There are all sorts of legal abuses that can take place here unless you've got something written down. Now, Candy, you made these T-shirts. Did you sell them?
Yes, I have, yeah.
How many did you sell?
I sold around 52.
And I think, how much were they a piece?
At the time, they were 28, I think.
£28,
Yeah.
which is the average price of these bespoke T-shirts. Do you know what the costs were to make them in total?
Yeah, £20.
So that's, if they're 52 times 28, the profit there is about £416?
Yeah, that's correct.
When you found out this had happened, what did you say to Candy?
I didn't say too much about it, but obviously underneath, I was always a little bit resentful because £850 is a lot of money, and I was just moving into a new career, and it had taken me a week and a half to get it to the point where I'd got it.
And presumably, when you invest your artistic and intellectual capital, your creative spirit into something like that, it's personal to you, right?
It's very personal, but also that week and a half that it took was, I lost a week and a half's income from any other source of, work. So it actually bit me in the pocket as well as in the heart.
I understand that. However, we're in a strange situation here because I think there's a bigger issue. Whose copyright is that? Who owns that painting and the right to reproduce it, would you say?
Me.
Well, before you said you were prepared for Candy to use your image as Dusty. Why is this different?
Because the image of Dusty, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. You only have to Google my name and literally hundreds come up. When I was working, people used to take my photograph all the time, and I always felt that it was something that, it was my art, but it was something that I was giving, and I didn't want payment for that.
Now, you need to be aware of this. Again, it's very important learning. Of those images that you've used on your ordinary T-shirts, not this one, have you always sought permission from the person whose image you're using to put them on the clothing?
Yes.
And how would you go about getting that permission? What would you need to do?
Most of those artworks, they came because the drag queens approached me. They wanted it,
good
so I
publicity
drawn
for
it
them.
for them. Yes.
So when they say they wanted it, would they put it in an email to you?
Mostly on Facebook messages, but yes.
Point is, there's some trail, there's
Yeah.
some communication which you
Yes,
can rely
that's
upon.
true.
In the event they come along and they say, that candy's just nicked my image, you could wave about and say, no, I'm sorry, you came to ask me. And you get to keep all of the profit in respect of those other T-shirts, correct?
Yes.
See, the point is, in law, if I find that you own the copyright as opposed to her, you can claim damages. You have not brought this case in that way. Your claim is based upon what I said before, the loss of the commission. Would you like to amend your claim now, yes or no?
Yes.
Now, who do you say owns that painting, you or him?
He owns the painting.
Why should I not grant him damages then? What do you say is material in your defence?
I asked his permission. He said yes. I believe it was a miscommunication, and honestly, I tried to talk to him. I messaged him a couple of times.
You got cross, am I right about this, and stopped speaking to
Yeah.
her? Well, you're laughing. I want to know how cross you got. That's important to your state of mind here.
Yeah, I was kind of hurt, but also because at that point I was really poor. You know, I'd gone from living in a world where had quite a lot to another world, another way of life where I'd got very little. The commission was literally like a month's money for me. That would have been a month's lifesaver at a very difficult time. So I'd rather than confront Candy, because as I've said before, I like Candy,
Sure.
and she's a lovely person, rather than make a bad situation worse, I decided to ignore it.
Now, it's a difficult one. Except this. David, that is your work. I'm entirely satisfied of it. Candy, you describe this case as a miscommunication. However, all of your work on your website are images of the LGBTQ community. This image represents quite literally a sea change from the rest of those photographs that you put on T-shirts. Bearing in mind that was the case, when you said to David, I want to use your image, it was incumbent on you to take special care to explain that what you really meant by that was that you were going to use his horse painting. Because you didn't do that, I'm entirely sure that David, in his mind, did not give you permission to recreate that image on the T-shirt. And therefore, it's his copyright, and you're in breach of that copyright. Question is, what do I do about it? Well, David, your claim for the loss of the commission, I have to dismiss. What I can do, however, and what I must do in law, is determine what profit here has been made as a result of the work that you did. Total profit is £416. Do you undertake to me that there will be no further breach of this copyright and you will not use that image or indeed any other image of David's paintings without his further consent?
Yes, Your Honour.
I'm grateful. That's the award of this court. £416.
David was awarded £416 by the court. Let's find out how both parties felt about the judge's ruling.
I didn't come here to make Candy suffer. I just wanted her to acknowledge that what she did was a bit naughty.
Yeah, I'm happy that the whole thing is resolved now.
For me, that's it, done. We had a problem, now it's solved. It was a really interesting experience to hear what the judge had got to say, and he spoke a lot of sense, obviously, and now I know, and I won't be making that mistake again.
To be honest, like this case is different because it's a different artwork. and I used his painting on the T-shirt. So I really should have asked. And if there's anything in the future, I just want to ask you to just sit down with me and let's talk about it.
And not hide.
And not to hide, yeah.
Coming next.
Now, who drafted this partnership